Mom demanded $18 kelvins for my sister's wedding. When I refused, she stole it. Weeks later, both faced fraud charges and lost. $250 kelvins trust fund. You ever grow up knowing your parents have a favorite kid but trying to pretend they don't? Yeah, that was my whole childhood. I'm 27 now, but the favoritism never really stopped. My younger sister, Isabel, was times the times golden child. You know, the type private school paid in full, first car on her 18th birthday, and not a dime of student debt. Meanwhile, I was working nights in a warehouse just to afford community college and textbooks. My mom liked to call it building character. I called it survival. She was the kind of mom who handed Isabel everything on a silver platter. Tuition, covered. Car, brand new at 18. Emergency dental work, even cosmetic veneers, no problem. Meanwhile, I was scraping together every cent just to put food on the table and pay my own bills. Growing up, you just accept certain things. Some kids get the spotlight, others get the bill. I was usually the latter. I don't blame her entirely. She played favorites, sure, but I tried to make the best of it. I thought to myself, if I work hard enough, eventually I'll get my break. Maybe someday family would mean family for everyone, not just Isabel. But I was wrong because this story, it isn't just about childhood favoritism. It's about the moment I realized how far my mom would go to protect Isabel's future at my expense. And that moment came one Thursday evening, just a few months before Isabel's wedding. I had just walked in from my job at the engineering firm, tired but ready to relax. I'd kicked off my shoes, poured myself a drink, and was about to settle in for the night. Then she showed up. My mom, still holding a key to my apartment, walked right in like she owned the place. Her gaze was sharp, colder than I'd seen in years, and she didn't even sit down before she said it. Lucas, Isabel's wedding is in 3 months. She needs $18,000. You're going to give it to her. Not, could you help? Not, would you consider? A demand. I sat down slowly, swirling the drink in my hand, stunned. Mom, that's everything I've saved over 4 years. Every penny from 60-hour work weeks and skipped vacations. She looked at me like I was the problem. You don't need it now. Isabel's getting married. Family comes first. Or did I raise you to be selfish? There it was, the guilt trip I'd been dodging my whole life. I took a deep breath. Mom, Isabel and her fiance make twice what I do. If they can't afford their wedding, maybe they should scale back. Her face hardened. So, you plan to disgrace your sister? Let her walk down the aisle in some cheap venue because her brother won't support the family. Everyone will know, Lucas. Uncles, cousins, everyone. I could practically feel the threat wrap around me like a noose, but I stood firm. I'm not paying for her wedding. The room chilled. Her lips tightened. You're making a big mistake. Don't say I didn't warn you. She turned and slammed the door so hard it rattled the frame. And I sat there, stunned. That sick feeling that this isn't over started gnawing at me. Looking back, I should have changed the locks that night. It was around 7 p.m. on a Thursday, just like any other. I'd just come home from work, still dressed in my engineering firm clothes, ready to kick back with a drink. But then Mom walked in, no knocking, no warning, just right in with that look only she can give. She barely sat down before she hit me with it. Isabel's wedding is in 3 months, and she needs $18,000. You're going to give it to her. That line stung harder than I expected. 18 grand? That was times everything times I'd been saving. 4 years of working 60-hour weeks, skimping on vacations, and living lean. But Mom, she wasn't asking, it was a demand. I leaned back, trying to keep calm. Mom, that's my entire savings. I've worked hard for that money. Her gaze didn't waver. If anything, it grew colder. You don't need it right now. Isabel's wedding is what matters. Family comes first. Or did I raise you to be selfish? Ever since I was a kid, she'd used guilt like a weapon, a subtle but effective little poison. She painted me as the villain for wanting to hold on to my hard-earned cash. I knew what she was doing, but it didn't make it any less painful. I took a breath and measured my words carefully. Mom, Isabel and her fiancé both make twice what I do. If they can't afford their dream wedding, Maybe they should adjust their plans or save up. Her lips pressed into a hard line. So you disgrace your sister? Let her down at the altar because her brother is too rich to support the family? Her voice dropped into a threat, sharp and cold. Everyone will know, Lucas. Uncles, cousins, everyone. You'll be the selfish son who let your sister down. It was emotionally brutal. Never mind that I covered her car payments twice last year, paid for Isabel's emergency dental work. None of that mattered. I looked her dead in the eyes. No, I'm not paying for Isabel's wedding. The temperature in the room dropped. Her eyes darkened, lips tightening into a narrow line. You're making a mistake. A big one. Don't say I didn't warn you. Then she was gone in a flash, slamming the door hard enough to shake the walls. I sat in stunned silence, drink untouched on the table. That uneasy feeling settled deep in my gut. This wasn't over. And honestly, that night should have been the night I changed my locks. But it didn't, and I was about to regret it. I woke up Friday morning to a nightmare I didn't see coming. My phone was buzzing off the hook, and my bank's fraud department had already left several messages and sent texts. My heart sank before I even opened them. I logged into my banking app, hands shaking, and there it was $18,000 in pending charges posted overnight. My checking balance was untouched, but my credit card maxed out. Every single charge was from wedding expenses. $6,000 for the venue deposit, $5,200 on catering, $3,400 for photography, $1,800 florist charges, $1,200 dress alterations, $600 for réception décoration. The list went on, all within 8 hours. I was shocked, angry, and confused. I keep my credit card locked in my desk drawer. How had someone gotten hold of it? I called the bank, hands trembling. The fraud rep asked if anyone had access to my home. I hesitated, then said, "My mom still has a key. She asked me for exactly this amount yesterday." There was a long pause on the other end. "Sir, you need to file a police report. We can dispute the charges, but family cases are tricky," the rep warned. I sank back onto my couch, the weight of it crushing me. My own mother broke into my apartment, took my credit card, and spent my savings without asking. It wasn't a loan or a favor. It wasn't even an apology. She stole times it. Later that morning, my friend Jonas called. He could tell from my voice something was wrong. "You sound like someone pissed in your cereal," he joked, trying to lighten the mood. I told him everything. He was silent for a moment before saying, "Bro, you times have times to handle this now. If you don't, they'll just keep doing it." He was right. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about setting boundaries, finally saying no and meaning it. Without wasting time, I called my mom. She picked up on the third ring, sounding calm like nothing was wrong. "Morning, Lucas. I hope you've had time to think about everything," she said sweetly. I cut her off, voice hard. "You stole my credit card." A pause, then her usual patronizing tone. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I didn't steal, I just handled things. Isabel needed help, and you were being stubborn. You'll thank me once you see how beautiful the wedding is." She didn't deny it, didn't apologize, just acted like she'd done me a favor. I demanded my card back and told her to cancel all those charges immediately. She laughed. "Lucas, honey, the deposits are non-refundable. Just accept it and move on. Besides, what are you going to do? Call the cops on your own mother?" There it was, the ultimate power move. She assumed I wouldn't press charges because of family loyalty, because no one wants drama, and because she trained me to keep the peace. She was wrong. I said flatly, "You have 72 hours to repay every cent, or I'm filing a police report." "You wouldn't dare," she sneered, then hung up. I called the bank back to report the card stolen and all charges fraudulent. They walked me through filing a police report, which I scheduled for the next morning. Then I did something that might have saved me. I called my dad. My parents had divorced 7 years ago in a messy split. Dad lived 2 states away now, remarried, starting fresh. Years ago, he caught Mom siphoning money from their joint accounts, which is why he left. He answered quickly, Lucas, everything all right? I got straight to the point. Dad, can I ask you about Grandpa's will? The trust fund. He paused, then said, I'll send you everything. I didn't know it yet, but that call was about to change everything. The next morning at the police station, I was met by Inspector Elena Rossi. She was professional but clearly skeptical when I told her I was filing charges against my own mother for credit card fraud. You're serious about this? She asked, looking over my printed bank statements, transaction logs, and screenshots of messages. I nodded. I even had security footage from my building management that showed my mom sneaking into my apartment in the middle of the night with a small purse, then leaving almost an hour later. Inspector Rossi's skepticism faded, replaced by concern. This is solid evidence. We can proceed legally. She warned me that the process might take days or weeks, including questioning my mother and sister. She also cautioned me to be prepared for the inevitable family backlash. I was bracing myself already. This was going to get ugly, and sure enough, it did. Text from my sister Isabel flew into my phone angry, accusing me of trying to ruin her wedding. How could I be so selfish? How could I choose to hurt her on her big day? I didn't reply. I screenshot everything and saved it. Then came the calls from other relatives like Uncle Stefan, who had always been the more reasonable voice but hated family drama. Lucas, your mom says you're trying to have her arrested over some big misunderstanding, he said. I corrected him. She stole my card, Uncle. It's not a misunderstanding, he sighed. I'm not defending her, but is it worth tearing the family apart? Can't you just let it go? Letting it go, that was never an option anymore? The icing on the cake came when I discovered something crucial from Dad Grandpa's trust fund agreement. Turns out Grandpa set up a $250,000 trust fund divided among all the kids and grandkids, including my mom and Isabel. But there was a catch, a clause that disqualifies any beneficiary convicted of fraud, theft, or financial crimes against family. If convicted, that person forfeits times their entire portion times of the trust, which is then divided among the remaining beneficiaries. And the kicker? Grandpa appointed me as the secondary trustee after Dad, meaning if Mom got convicted, I'd control that money. Suddenly, this wasn't just about $18,000 anymore. It was about long-term consequences and holding people accountable. Of course, this didn't sit well with the family. Texts and calls kept pouring in asking me to drop the charges, to be the bigger person, to think about Isabel's wedding. Funny how family came first only when they wanted something from me. Everyone knew Mom played favorites and manipulated the family, but confronting her was easier said than done. So I stopped making things easy. That Sunday, Uncle Stefan called me again. Lucas, your mom's in tears, says you're ruining everything. I told him the truth. She stole my credit card and spent 4 years of my savings without permission. He was silent. Then he said something chilling. She mentioned having resources. That immediately set off alarm bells in my head. Resources meant lawyers, which is exactly why my conversation with Dad about the trust fund was critical. I opened the folder Dad sent me, pages of documents about the trust, legalese, and the clause designed to keep manipulators like Mom in check. I knew I was ready for the fight ahead. The trust fund was like a safety net Grandpa had woven for the family, but also a weapon against anyone who tried to abuse their position. It held nearly $250,000, split between my mom, Isabel, and the other beneficiaries with strict conditions. Mom was set to receive $200,000, held in a managed trust until she turned 62 next year. Isabel had a smaller share, $50,000 that would unlock at 28. And here's the part that changed everything. Grandpa had included a clause that anyone convicted of fraud, theft, embezzlement, or any financial crime against a family member would lose their entire share of the trust. That money would then be redistributed among the others. It was a safeguard against people like my mom, whose manipulative ways had caused damage over the years. And as if that wasn't enough, Grandpa had appointed me as the secondary trustee after Dad. If Mom were convicted, I'd have the authority to enforce the forfeiture clause. The trust, in a way, was my ace. Dad had warned me about this clause years ago when the will was first read, saying Grandpa had witnessed Mom's manipulations firsthand and wanted to protect the family from further harm. At the time, I thought it was just paranoia. Now I understood it was a safeguard built with brutal foresight. This wasn't just about stolen money anymore. It was justice, family legacy, and a hard-earned lesson all rolled into one. By Monday, Inspector Rossi called to give me an update. Mr. Maro, after reviewing everything, we're moving forward with charges. Your mother will be questioned this week. I asked about Isabel, given she profited from the stolen money. That's tougher, Rossi said. If there's no proof she knew the money was stolen, we may not be able to charge her, but she will be questioned. Meanwhile, the police descended on Mom's residence for questioning. My aunt, who lived nearby, gave me a running play-by-play. Apparently, the cops were there for about 100 minutes. Mom emerged looking pale and frightened. Isabel was screaming from the driveway, trying to stir sympathy. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Mom's attorney, Laurent Dubois, a family law and white-collar defense specialist, just what you want to hear when you're already in the middle of family drama. Mr. Marrow, I represent Claudia Marrow. There's been a misunderstanding about the credit card charges. My client shows willingness to set up a payment plan for the $18,000 over 14 months in exchange for dropping charges. I nearly laughed. Her client Times stole Times my card and committed fraud. There's video evidence. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a crime. The lawyer warned me. Charging your mother will be costly and damaging to family relationships. Is it worth $18,000? Absolutely, I said simply. There was no going back. The threats were just beginning. A few days into the legal battle, my phone rang. It was Mark, Isabel's fiancé, someone I barely knew. He sounded stressed, like he hadn't slept in days. Lucas, thanks for meeting me. They're a mess right now. We met at a coffee shop the next morning, in a corner booth away from prying eyes. Mark looked worn down but determined to tell me the whole story. He told me he hadn't realized my mom stole the wedding money at first. Isabel had painted a very different picture that I had agreed to contribute and was just being difficult. That surprised me. How could Isabel possibly spin this to make me look bad? Mark said their communication was complicated. Isabel and I rarely spoke, and she often relayed messages through my mom. She kept him in the dark, too. But then, during a police inquiry at her place last week, Mark overheard a conversation where everything unraveled. Isabel confessed, not just about knowing the money was stolen, but about planning it. She had scouted my apartment months earlier, learning where I kept important things like my wallet and documents. She and Mom worked out a plan to take the money while I was asleep, knowing I'd probably say no if asked outright. The whole surprise sister act was just that, an act. I listened, stunned, as Mark revealed how deep the betrayal ran. I struggled to keep my voice calm when I asked the obvious question, so she wasn't just a passive recipient? She helped plan it? Mark nodded grimly. Yes, they wanted the money, and they didn't care who got hurt. Then he dropped a bomb. I could see the pain in his eyes as he admitted, I called the wedding off this morning. The words hung heavy in the air. He said he'd given Isabel the ring back hours before our meeting, telling her he couldn't build a life with someone capable of that kind of dishonesty. The texts from Isabel weren't any better, constant calls and messages, demanding he make things right, all at Mom's urging. She even threatened to spin the narrative, painting me as the villain who abandoned her at the altar, or worse. Mark looked at me with a mixture of sadness and resolve. I'm on your side, Lucas. Not everyone in this mess is against you. You should know the full scope. He then pulled out his phone, showing me texts between Isabel and Mom, plans for the break-in, vendor bookings, even messages mocking me for being too passive to follow through on any accusations. It was brutal to see, but also strangely empowering. The truth was finally out. Once the investigators started digging, the storm really hit. Inspector Rossi called regularly with updates. They'd confiscated Mom's financial records and uncovered evidence she'd borrowed money from family members without permission before. The police weren't stopping at just the credit card fraud. They were uncovering a history of manipulation and financial misconduct. Meanwhile, Mom hired a lawyer and the game changed. Dubois, her attorney, wasn't just polite advice, he was a weapon. He called repeatedly, trying to intimidate me, warning me about the emotional and financial cost of dragging my own mother through court. You'll lose far more than $18,000 if this goes to trial, he said, his tone cold. Family members bombarded my phone with calls and texts. Aunt Margot warned me to think about Isabel's special day. Uncle Stefan pleaded for peace and offered to mediate. Even distant cousins I hardly spoke to chimed in, asking me to be the bigger person. Not one of them called Mom's actions wrong. It was all about protecting Mom and Isabel, keeping the wedding intact, and shaming me for standing my ground. Funny how family loyalty works when the money's on the line. Jonas showed up one evening with pizza and a cold drink, offering a listening ear. They hired a lawyer. You in trouble? He asked, eyebrows raised. Not yet, I said. I have surveillance footage, bank records, and a recorded call where she admits everything. No way she gets out clean, Jonas said with a nod. I pulled up Isabel's Instagram. She'd posted a heartfelt story about her toxic brother trying to ruin her wedding and how families should just support each other. The comments were filled with sympathy for her. Most didn't know the truth. Jonas shook his head. Your family is something else. I explained the trust fund clause and how Mom could lose $200,000 if convicted with me as the trustee. That's serious play, Jonas said, raising his drink. I respect you for not backing down. We both knew this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice and standing up to years of being pushed around. As the investigation moved forward, the truth couldn't be ignored. Inspector Rossi called to confirm the charges were officially filed. Mom would be questioned again, and the possibility of losing the trust fund loomed large. Isabel's refusal to return the money only hardened my stance. I sent her a simple message. All charges made with my stolen card must be repaid within 72 hours. She called me insane and doubled down on playing the victim. But the longer I stood my ground, the more I realized this wasn't just about money or a wedding anymore. It was about finally protecting myself from a lifetime of manipulation and being treated like a doormat. Family had always come first, unless it was inconvenient or costly for certain members. I lost friends in the family who chose silence or denial over truth. I lost relationships with people who sided with Mom and Isabel out of convenience. But I gained something priceless: boundaries, self respect, and the courage to stand up for what's right. I won't pretend it was easy. It still hurts to lose my sister that way. But sometimes you have to choose yourself over toxic family dynamics. And in this case, standing up changed everything. So, what's the takeaway from this? Family can be complicated, filled with love, but also with pain and tough choices. Sometimes standing up for yourself means facing the people you once trusted the most. But protecting your peace and making sure you're not taken advantage of, that's worth every difficult conversation and every moment of doubt. If the story taught me anything, it's that no one should be forced to sacrifice everything for family, especially not when it's one-sided. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever been in a situation where family loyalty felt like a burden or a trap, drop a comment below and share your experience. And if you want to hear more real stories like this, hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you don't miss any. Remember, you're not alone, and sometimes speaking up is the first step toward reclaiming your life. Catch you in the next video.